Hello again. Good evening. I'm such a boomer, you guys. I guess F in the chat, L in the chat. What do you guys say? F in the chat. I recorded a live stream this morning that I was going to save, and for some reason, my dang phone, my YouTubes, won't upload it. I don't know if I just got to get better Wi-Fi or what, but anyways, I want to record another version of it because I can probably do it much better in a 20-minute video instead of a 45, however long, like 49-minute video. Anyways, this is part 2 of the New Republic, or the New Republicans. If you have left the left and you're wanting to join us, but you don't quite understand our positions on things or how things works, that's what I want to do. I want to help guide you and kind of explain things to you and show you what our options are. Okay, so let's get started. So I realized yesterday when I uploaded the video, part 1, I did not explain what a Republican was. So a Republican, and real quick, this one is about rights and economics. I'll try and keep it short and sweet. So a Republican is basically a Democrat that believes in objective values. So what that means is you believe in, and some Republicans, like I consider myself a Republican. I honestly, at this point, I don't hardly believe in democracy. But there are, I would say, most Republicans do believe in a representative democracy where the most important fact is that we have certain things that are not able to be voted on. Okay, if you have a direct democracy or a classical democracy, everything is on the table. It's two wolves in a sheep voting on what's for dinner. It's the 51% voting on how to steal from the 49%. So a republic is like, you know what? We can vote on some things, but certain things are not on the table anymore. You don't have the choice of taking this away. So for us, we have the Constitution, mostly the amendments, which says, the government can do all these things, but they can't violate people's rights to free speech, rights to bear arms, etc., etc. Why is that so important? Well, like I said in the first video, it's because morality is objective. The government is just a group of people, just like you and me. They don't have some special authority that gives them the right to do things to us that we don't have the right to do to them. That's the whole point of having a government by the people, is that they are held to the same standards as us. And certain rules are universal. Certain morals are universal. I'll talk later about different groups that don't fully agree with that, but this is basically right-wingism in a nutshell, okay? So the whole point of certain things being protected from a democracy is that you want to develop a high-trust society, all right? People argue about rights. They argue about if they even exist, which is stupid, okay? Rights do exist. They're just as real as math and logic, okay? They exist as a concept that creates good societies and bad societies. So, for example, rights, when properly understood, create a high-trust society. What that means is a society where you can set your wallet down on a table in a cafe, walk down the street, and then walk back to the cafe and your wallet's still there. Or better yet, someone brings your wallet to you. They chase you down. Hey, you forgot this. That happens in Japan all the time because Japan is a high-trust society. A low-trust society is one where everyone's got barred-up windows. Every store is like a damn prison because everything's locked up behind bulletproof glass. Basically, any store in California at this point, stores in black areas, of course, will all look like this because it's a low-trust society. So, do rights exist? whatever, man. That's not an important argument, because obviously they do exist, because when you violate rights, bad things happen. Rights exist as a concept to tell us what we should and should not respect. What behavior should we permit and what should we not permit? So there's two schools of thought when it comes to rights. You've got positive rights and you've got negative rights. Positive rights are what people on the left basically believe. You have the right to free this and free that, and you have the right to welfare and a right to health care and a right to all these things for free that's paid for by other people. Well, you can pretty easily debunk positive rights in a nutshell by just saying, look, man, you are not obligated to give anything away to other people for free. So why the fuck would someone else be obligated to give shit to you for free? That's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. And they might say things like, well, what about the poor? What about this? And they try and pull on your heartstrings. And look, if you're a former leftist, I know I have heartstrings too. I don't like people to suffer. I really don't. But if you look at the way the world works, places with a higher trust society, that's going to be places that respect negative rights. There's less poor people. There's a lot less poverty. And in fact, the only thing that has ever brought anyone out of poverty has been capitalism, free markets. Give people the options to work and to decide what they do for work, and the freedom to start their own business and to negotiate prices and all that, this, that, and the other. They're probably going to be able to pull themselves up out of poverty. You give people a little bit of a chance, give people a little bit of benefit of the doubt, and you'll see that they can surprise you. People are capable of a lot more than we give them credit for, okay? So, like I said yesterday, we don't want to treat everyone like they are a baby, like they are helpless. We want to help everyone reach their potential. That's really what unites people on the right, is we believe in individual capability and potential and possibility. So, without getting on a tangent, what do rights have to do with economics? Well, the first right, the most important right, like I said yesterday, self-ownership and the non-aggression principle. That means you have the right to not be aggressed against. You have the right for someone not to go punch you in the face. For anything, as long as you're not hurting someone else or threatening someone else, then no one has the right to go punch you in the face. They don't have the right to shoot you, tackle you, whatever. You have the right to walk around free of being, assaulted. What follows from that is that you also have the right to have property. And by property, I mean a house, a car, anything that you can come across that is a physical bit of land or a business, as long as you come by that morally, that is, you either built it yourself or you bought it from somebody or traded it with somebody or they gave it to you, like through inheritance or whatever. Pretty much all of the legal ways you can acquire something right now currently are legit ways, for the most part. We can get into the nitty-gritty in that later on in a video if I ever feel like it. But for the most part, buying something, inheriting something, building something, finding something maybe if no one else is using it, you can acquire property those ways, and that's morally justified. And you have the right to not have that property stolen or damaged by other people. This is something the left generally does not understand, because it's really hard to have one form of rights, like positive rights, while also respecting negative rights. It's actually a lot easier to have positive rights if you respect negative rights first. That's why you'll see all these high trust societies, they have social safety nets because they can afford to. Again, like I said it in the live stream today, you cannot afford socialism or social safety nets without first having a bunch of capitalist money coming in, okay? That's because socialism redistributes money that's already there. if it doesn't create wealth. Communism, socialism, they do not create wealth. They base their ideology on first stealing the wealth that the rich have, and then second on building a society that doesn't require wealth at all. Which really begs the question, if they think they're capable of building a society without wealth, why the fuck do they need to steal wealth from other people first? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. But, you know, I'm not a communist. I have all of my brain cells. I have lots of wrinkles in my brain. It looks like a giant walnut, I'm assuming. So it, you know, I don't know. I don't know why people think the way that they do. I might get into that into a later video, maybe explaining why people are attracted to the left. And if you're a former leftist watching this, tell me. I think a lot of it has to do with empathy, which I totally empathize with. See what I did there? If you feel bad about the suffering of others, that is a good thing. But please understand, there are evil people out there that will use your strengths, like your goodness, against you. They'll say, oh, you don't want people to suffer? You know what? I'm running for this political party and I'm going to end suffering. Why don't you give me power to steal from other people and use the police force against other people and drop bombs on other people, and let's see how I can solve your problem. And then what they wind up doing actually is shutting down free speech and destroying businesses. So you have to have rights. You have to have negative rights, as in the right from violence, aggression, the rights from dishonesty, like fraud. Because if I tell you, hey, look, I'm going to sell you a bridge that is made of pure gold, and you agree and you buy the bridge for a couple $1 billion or whatever, and you get to it and it's some wobbly, shitty, like rotten wood bridge, that's obviously I'm lying, you know. And so that's not allowed in a negative rights. That would violate your negative rights. You also, because of free speech, like why do we even have free speech? Why does that matter? Free speech matters because freedom of thought matters. And you cannot have freedom of thought without free speech. And you cannot have freedom of speech without freedom of thought. We don't really talk about freedom of thought much, but basically your mind has to be this free, open, jungle gym where you can just imagine things and toy with different ideas. And I mean, I have little debates inside my own mind all the time. If you can't do that, honestly, you probably shouldn't be allowed to vote. But I think you should be able to hold contradictory opinions at the same time and challenge them with each other. Like, okay, I'm against abortion, but I'm also for abortion under certain circumstances. So, like, which one makes the most logical sense? You need freedom of thought and freedom of speech at the same time. Certain ideologies, of course, will attack freedom of thought and freedom of speech, but freedom of speech is considered a negative right because you don't require other people to allow you to do anything for you to have free speech. You have free speech to speak your mind, just as they have free speech to ignore you, or they don't have to spread your message for them or for you, So that's basically it for rights. And what spawns out of these rights is an economy. Because if you have the right to basically make your own choices in life, as long as you're not hurting other people, you're going to basically seek out interactions that are positive sum. So let's talk about we're getting into economics real quick. There's this sort of thing, I think, and look, man, I'm kind of a uneducated buffoon, right? But I do a lot of reading, I listen to things. And you ever heard of game theory, right? So you have like positive sum game, negative sum game, equal sum game, zero sum game. Basically, it's like a positive sum game is I have apples, you have oranges. I value an orange more than I value an apple. You value an apple more than you value an orange because you have a lot of oranges, I have a lot of apples. So we trade an apple for an orange. We both gained something out of that. We both had a better day because of that. That is the workforce in a nutshell. I value my time, but you pay me a certain amount of dollars an hour or a certain commission or whatever, I will gladly give up X amount of hours a week of fiddle farting around, going to the beach, reading books or whatever, playing video games. I will gladly give that up to go work for you or to do whatever that job is if it means I'm getting paid money for it, because that money can be traded to buy anything that I want, that money can buy, that can be afforded with whatever amount of money I have. So economics is kind of an interesting topic for us when we're talking about, the right versus the left, because it's kind of like a flip turned upside down sort of situation. The left wing believes that economic value is objective and moral value is subjective, which is weird. I don't understand how they're supposed to expect me to give a shit about oppression and colonialism if morality is subjective. What if, in my opinion, all that shit's fine? How are you going to convince me that my opinion's wrong when you told me morality is an opinion? That doesn't make any sense. But also, because they believe that economic value is objective, they have to write these big, thick books about economics that's basically just word salad gibberish. Karl Marx wrote Das Kapital, and it had 3 volumes. It took him like 40 years of his worthless life to write. And each of those books is like, it makes Atlas Shrugged look like light summer reading. It's not. Atlas Shrugged is like a 1,300 page book if you haven't read it. It's a great read. You should definitely read it if you're a new conservative, because it teaches you one of the most important values that you probably don't know already, that a lot of conservatives don't know already, which is, it's really what I kind of want to tell anyone who's a former leftist. It's a little pep talk I want to give you, man. Look, you deserve to go after your own dreams. You have every right to be selfish and go after the things in life that you want, as long as you're not stopping other people from doing the same thing. No one owes you anything, and you don't owe them anything. The only thing you owe anyone else is non-aggression, honesty, and that's basically it. That's basically it. If we had that, just that foundation, there would be no theft, there would be no assault, no kidnapping, no rape, no whatever. And gosh, that's something that's so funny to me. Not funny, but interesting, is that people on the left pretend, or maybe some genuinely are, but I think most of them pretend, that they're really against rape and sexual assault because consent matters. But then whenever you talk about any subject that isn't sex, all of a sudden consent is something that is laughable and is, you're stupid for even thinking it. Come on, man, have a little bit of a standard that is objective. So I really need to, maybe I'm not the best public speaker. I got to work on that, at least staying on my one track. So look, economics, value is subjective. So what that means is, if you think value is objective, then you have these huge complex explanations for why an apple costs $1.50. It's the same thing as before they realized that the sun was the center of the solar system. They had these crazy maps of the stars where it's like, this star goes like this, and this star goes like this, and this star goes like this. Oh, and Mercury has retrograde and all that. And they didn't understand the movements of the stars until one dude put the sun right at the center of the universe, or not the universe, but of the solar system. And then all of a sudden everything clicked. Everything became predictable. It made sense. When value is subjective, economics actually makes sense. Now, if you learned economics in school like I did, you learned shitty economics that was taught to you by I don't want to just say they're all shitty teachers, but most of them are, let's be honest. Most of them are Marxists. They're certainly teaching Marxist economics or something that's barely indistinguishable from it. You see, economics is old, of course, but the way we learn it in America comes from, there's 2 different main schools of thought in economics of when it comes to people that actually care about economics or are econ nerds these days, you've got Keynesian economics, which is kind of the mainstream, is kind of what the government goes by, economics. Then you got the Austrian school of economics, which is what people on the right wing go by in economics. At least people that are educated properly about economics go by. So, to give a little bit of backstory real quick, before the Great Depression, we had these two economists, Ludwig von Mises, the Austrian, and John Maynard Keynes, the Keynesian. And Keynes wanted to just print more money to stimulate all these different areas. And Mises was like, fuck that, you're going to crash the economy. Keynes wanted to go off the gold standard, and Mises was like, fuck that, you're going to crash the economy. And then they were like, we're going to go with this Keynes idea. And Mises was like, don't say I didn't warn you, because I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. You're going to crash the fucking economy if you go off the gold standard and start printing money everywhere, because the dollar is going to lose its value. Well, spoiler alert, the government listened to Keynes, the economy crashed, we had a Great Depression, the dollar lost so much value, and that's kind of been a snowball that has just constantly been going on. If you want to know why our economy has kind of been going downhill for the past century, it's because we went off the gold standard. Okay, so yes, economic value is subjective, but there are certain standards that are kind of universal, like supply and demand, right? So I had, talking about apples again, I don't know why I keep using apples as an example, but when I was in college, I took an astronomy class, and I had this stupid fucking professor who didn't understand economics. An entire class didn't understand economics, and he was talking about, I know so much about space and of geology and how the world works physically, but no one understands why an apple costs $1. That's just something no one will understand. And the whole class was like, yeah, that's a mystery. We'll never understand that. And I looked around at everybody, and I was like, are you people stupid? Are y'all fucking stupid? Are y'all serious? You can't be serious right now. And they looked at me like, what are you saying? And so, like, what are you saying? So I stood up and gave them a quick little economics lecture and the guise of a poll. I took a poll. I said, all right, let's say I have an apple in my hand. Who here is going to give me $1 million for my apple? No one raised their hand. Surprise, surprise. Because either no one had $1 million because they didn't. They're college students at, a community college. But also because no one would willingly give $1 million for an apple. Their apples are relatively easy to grow. Certainly not worth $1 million to grow a single apple unless we're like world starvation status. And they're just not willing to pay it. So I explained the whole concept of prices to them, which is something we're both trying to meet in the middle. If I'm a producer of something, let's say I'm an apple farmer, and you want to eat an apple, we're gonna have to meet halfway somewhere, because I would love it if you would give me $1 million for an apple, but you're probably not going to spend that much. So I have to lower my price to meet the demand. So the price is going to lower based on what I can actually sell the apple for. If I can sell an apple for $1, then I'll do it. And if they're selling off the shelves, I'm gonna raise the price, because why wouldn't I get more out of it? And when the price raises, then I can, I make more money. But eventually, I'm going to keep raising the price until it stops flying off the shelf. Then I'm going to stabilize it right there. Maybe lower it a little bit. And so basically, what that's showing is that people will tend to buy what they need or what they want. And they will spend more money on what they need more of. Or they need it more badly, they'll be willing to spend more money on it. So having prices is ironically how we determine need of something. This is something, another thing I think is really funny about communism is that they really have two major goals in communism, is from each according to his ability to each according to his need. They want a needs-based society. But they also want to get rid of money, so they don't have prices. So, like, you cannot tell who needs what. And this is what happened in the Soviet Union and every country that's become communist, is you have a bunch of different needs going on, but no one knows what they are because there's no pricing on anything. Instead, there's quotas. The government says, we need X amount of tons of nails printed or printed or whatever. We need X amount of yardages of dresses made. We need, X amount of tractors built, et cetera, et cetera. And so what wound up happening in the Soviet Union was they would fill all these warehouses of shit no one needed just because it fit a quota. And they had a bunch of other things that people needed, but they ran out of because there was no quota for it, because the government cannot tell what everyone needs. Now, I'm going to blow your mind real quick. Every single person is an individual. Every single person has different needs. They have a different life situation. They have different desires. Human desire is infinite. I would love to have, I don't really need a million cars, but have like a big mansion in every city that I'd like to live in, or like that I'd like to travel to, have my own private jet, have all sorts of things. But because of prices, I'm restricted to only being able to buy things that I can afford. And the way that money works is, and I was just explaining this to kids in my neighborhood yesterday, funny enough, because they saw me working in the yard, they got excited, ran over, wanted to help, and I said, sure, okay, you can help if you want, I'll give you a juice. I had a Capri Sun, or a couple Capri Suns in my fridge, I gave them, and they said, you could give us money for this. And I told them, I never agreed to give you money. If you wanted money, you got to negotiate that sort of thing. Now, so what that means is, if you want money to spend in places, then you have to negotiate to provide some form of value to somebody so they give you money. Because life is not a zero-sum game or a negative-sum game, at least not under capitalism. Under low-trust societies and under communism or socialism, everything is a negative-sum game, or at best a zero-sum game. There's not really trade going on unless it's black market. Now let's talk back about why money is good instead of just bartering, in case you're on the fence about money. And I know even a lot of conservatives are kind of on the fence about money because they grow up going to church hearing about, a rich man can enter heaven just as easily as a camel can enter the eye of the needle. And I heard this clarified by some Christians before. They said, oh no, that doesn't mean it's impossible. That just means that it's really hard, because an eye of the needle is this little passage that a camel has to crawl down under to fit under. And it's the same thing, man. To say that being rich makes it harder for you to get into heaven is kind of saying that being selfish when it comes to money and trying to pursue your own values and benefit is wrong. It's saying the same thing. And that's not true. You have every moral right to pursue money for yourself. This is the biggest life lesson that I should have learned earlier on that I didn't. And honestly, I could have made millions of dollars if I had actually pursued careers from a younger age instead of giving up on it because I thought I would go to hell if I didn't. And I was never a liberal, not really. Not until I became an atheist, which is a separate story. So, economics, you've got to provide value to get money. And okay, barter and money. I was about to go into that. So, let's say I got apples, you got oranges, your neighbor has bananas. You got oranges, I want a banana. You want an apple. I'm not trading you for an orange. I don't want an orange. I had an orange for breakfast. So you're gonna have to go trade with your neighbor who's got the bananas. Get me a banana, then I'll give you an apple. But your neighbor doesn't want oranges neither. But the guy down the street wants oranges, and he's got a big bucket of tomatoes. That's what your banana neighbor wants, is tomatoes. So in a barter system where you're literally just trading goods directly, everyone is just tripping over themselves, running across town on a damn side quest, saying, well, okay, I want this, but my neighbor has this that I need to get to be able to get from this guy across town that has the thing that I want, but he needs this and I need to get that. And it's like, dude, come on. Let's just pick one thing to trade that everyone wants. One thing that's like a middleman that we can all agree on has a certain amount of value, and that's where the dollar comes in, or gold, or better yet, Bitcoin. Currency existed to make trade easier for us, okay? Now, I just mentioned Bitcoin. I'm assuming you know what Bitcoin is. It's blown up over the years. And talking about I could have made millions, I could have gotten to Bitcoin when it first came out, but because I was not taught economics or financing, I didn't realize that you buy things when they're cheap and you sell them when they gain value. That's the most basic concept of making money in an economy, is figure out a way to acquire goods for a good price, maybe improve them somehow, and then sell them later for a high price. This is every industry works on that principle. And if you didn't learn that in economics class in high school, guess what? You were not in an economics class, you were in a propaganda class that was teaching you basically government apologetics. So, what does the government and economics have to do with each other? Basically, the economy ends where the government begins, and vice versa. The government ends where the economy begins. And the government wants to control the economy because it's basically wanting to expand its territory, to expand its reach. It's like a gang taking over a wild beast that is, just this force of productivity. The economy is a force of productivity of people trading to improve their lives. And in the large scheme, it benefits everyone. So, why does the government sell us as this thing, or sell itself to us as this thing that benefits everybody when it kind of doesn't? I mean, sometimes it does. I'm not an anarchist anymore. I used to be like a real anarchist, which is an anarcho-capitalist. Basically, you want a full free market without a government. I am a Republican now because I see that that's really necessary in this certain stance, especially to fight communism. And most libertarians are not willing or able to fight communists. Some are, but I think right now we're in a civil war, and people are starting to see that the communist left really is a violent organization. It's a violent movement that's trying to, take over our society. And we have to come to terms with that. We have to at least acknowledge that that's real. And I think in order to fight that in ourselves, we have to really understand what they're fighting against, that they don't quite understand or that they misrepresent. And we have to understand what we're fighting for. Okay, so there's a few fallacies I want to get to real quick, and I really want to make this a shorter video than earlier because I got a place to be, and by the time I get there, I want to be done recording this. When it comes to economics, there's a few major fallacies that people make, mistakes that people make, where they think that government spending can solve economic problems. And in some cases it can. In some cases it can, but they're usually the rare exception. Okay? And the rule of thumb is if the free market can provide it, then it should. If the government has to come in and provide it, then it's probably not the best thing. That's kind of a general rule of thumb. And I'll go on a case-by-case basis on the arguments for each thing in later videos. But for now, just kind of acknowledge or understand that rule of thumb, if the market can provide something, it's better to provide than for the government to provide it, simply because the government does not produce anything on its own. It first has to steal from others. So what this means is there is a missing element in a government-produced value, which is it steals from other people first through taxes. So when you see, this country has free healthcare. Well, how do they afford free healthcare? They have high taxes, which means they don't have fucking free healthcare. It costs them taxes. They're paying for it in high taxes. So we need to understand the whole picture. Economics is kind of like fighting, Everyone drastically overestimates their ability to fight until they get punched in the face. or until they get thrown on the ground by a jiu-jitsu blue belt. You're not nearly as good at it as you think. In economics, you're not nearly as understanding of the economy as a whole as you probably think you are. A good example of that, again, talking about communists, to them, they look at economics like this big, huge problem that they're going to solve before anything happens. Well, how can we fix this, that, and the other? Well, we have to come up with this big, long explanation of here's exactly how society's going to function when we get rid of the capitalists. We're going to have 8 people over here growing corn and 19 people over here growing this, and they're going to trade this on Thursdays and blah, blah, blah. That's not how the economy works, dude. That's not how the real world of production works. It's not, and that's not even because of the system we live under. It's like the laws of physics, man. You can't just sprout wings and fly because you dream of it. You cannot violate the basic laws of economics. And one law is, the broken window fallacy, right? So the broken window fallacy is, let's say you throw a rock through someone's window like a bakery, and dummies will say, well, look, that baker now has to go spend $100 to get a new window, and then the window maker can use that $100 to buy new equipment, and et cetera, et cetera. And so you say, the economy has gained $100. No, it hasn't. The economy has lost $100 because that baker would have used that $100 for something else that's productive. So that's kind of how taxation works. There's an unseen cost to things when the government does something. And that comes in 2 or 3 forms, really. Because when you have taxation, you have direct theft, where if my, let's say I want to save up to buy something, but I'm getting money taken out of all of my paychecks through taxes, it takes me longer to save up for that thing. Let's say also because they're not just taxing to create money, they're also printing money out of thin air through the Federal Reserve, and that is lowering the value of my money. So I can't even buy things. Like if I save up $100 for a $100 thing, by the time I save up $100, that thing might be $120. So I'm being robbed through taxes, through inflation, and through quality. When the government provides a service, let's be real, the quality is usually not the best, okay? That's because they're spending other people's money that they're going to get for free anytime. If the government runs out of money, they'll just print more. They'll just steal more. So they don't care if they're getting a good deal on something. They'll spend however much money. They don't have to have a good budget, because what are we going to do? Stop paying taxes? Go use another government? No, we're stuck with it. So they're going to, they're not going to be that responsible with it, because it's a free resource. And talking about that, the tragedy of the commons. Okay, last thing I'm going to talk about. Imagine we're all goat farmers, okay? And we all have one big field that we let our goats out into to eat in the morning, and then we bring them in the afternoon. And since we all share this field, none of us personally has an incentive to really keep the field, like keep our goats from eating more of the grass, because if my goats don't eat a bunch of grass, then your goats are going to eat a bunch of grass, and then your goats are going to get bigger than my goats. So we're all eating up as much of this field as we can. A good real-world example of this is the ocean. Because people can't privately own patches of the ocean, overfishing has destroyed 90% of marine life. All these fucking save the whale morons never take that into account because they're communists. Okay, so you have to have private ownership in order to preserve resources. And when you're talking about economics, you have to have a high trust society with where it's safe to own things, where you're free to buy things without fear of it being stolen. And you also have to have an understanding that if the private market, the private free market, is capable of providing a service, then you're better off getting it from them, because then competition will lower prices of that thing. So for example, let's talk healthcare. I open up a hospital, or a insurance company. It sucks. You want to put me out of business. Maybe you're morally against my shitty insurance company, or you just want to make $1 billion. You're going to create an insurance company that's better than mine, put me out of business, steal all my customers, and then everyone has a better health insurance company. And that keeps working, that keeps going on. If we have a free market in healthcare, which we don't, if we did, then you'd see a lot of competition in healthcare. I challenge you this. If you really think we have a free market in healthcare, why don't you do me a favor? Go open up an insulin factory and sell insulin for an affordable price. If you look at the price of insulin, which is one of the biggest complaints people on the left have about the healthcare industry, is insulin is so expensive. Oh no, we need to have the government come in and change the price. Which is stupid, because the government's the reason the price is high in the first place. In a free market, insulin would be dirt cheap, okay? Because I would save up a bunch of money, I'd take out a loan, whatever. I would figure out a way to produce insulin for the lowest price that is decent enough to, do the job. And I would become the insulin fucking kingpin. And everyone can buy insulin from me, and there we go. Bob's your uncle. I'm rich. Everyone's got a good product. So that is kind of how it works. You need competition. You need private ownership in order for resources to be managed responsibly, and you need competition in order for prices to go down, quality to go up. And as a rule of thumb, you don't want the government taking care of everything, because they're going to give you shitty services. And if they suck at it, if you're not happy with their product, what are you going to do? Vote better next time? You're going to have to wait several years and cross your fingers that it improves. And, I'd rather just take my money elsewhere. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. Bye.